Hey guys, it's Megan. In today's video, I'll be showing you 10 art hacks that I actually use. I tried to include some things that you don't typically see in these art hack videos, so hopefully you'll learn something new. So without further ado, let's just get into the video. The first hack is one that I just learned recently, and it's to use the Grid app to add a grid over a photo when you want to use the grid method. All you have to do is choose a photo that you want to draw, make it black and white, and then import it into the Grid app by clicking the camera in the upper right. To make a square grid, you can choose how many rows or columns you want. Since my paper is 8.5 by 5.5 inches, I chose to do 16 columns. When I draw the grid on my paper, I'll be drawing half-inch squares, so 16 half-inch squares would equal 8 inches. This made it so that there were 10 rows, making the image 5 inches on the shorter side of my paper. You can change the color of the grid if you want. I changed mine to a bright green color. Then I screenshot the image to save it, and I cropped out any unnecessary parts. I imported the image into the Autodesk Sketchbook app and labeled the grid with letters and numbers to make it easier to draw. Then I saved the image to my camera roll. Once my reference image was ready, I divided my paper into half-inch squares and labeled the top with letters and the side with numbers. Then I drew the image, focusing on one square at a time until I had a finished sketch. I've avoided trying the grid method for a long time because I thought it would be too complicated, but using the Grid app really helps you save time preparing your reference photo. Obviously, I still plan to do more drawings in my typical style, but I think that this is a great tool to use to practice. I know that some people consider using the grid method cheating, but I personally don't feel that way. Even though it does make drawing people easier, there will always be small imperfections that make the drawing your own. This is really evident when you look at a group of drawings from an art class. Even though everyone is given the same instructions, many of them won't look like their photo at all. The next hack is to use marker underneath pencil drawings as a base layer. This might just be common sense, but I genuinely didn't know about this until recently. Maybe it's just my personal preference, but I find it much easier to add shading with pencils instead of markers. To blend my pencils, I like to use this DIY blending stump/tortillon that I made. To make the blending tool, I folded a piece of computer paper in half and then cut it into 2 pieces. I took one of the halves of the piece of paper and then I folded up the corner like this. I cut off the piece that I just folded and then I taped the piece of paper onto the table. Starting at the end of the paper, I just rolled it up really tightly and then just kept rolling it until the whole paper was rolled. I used another piece of tape to secure everything together, and I made the blending tool into a point using a piece of sandpaper. If you don't have sandpaper, you can use a nail file instead. This is really similar to a tortillon, but it's great because you can make it with supplies that you probably already have at home. I'm not going to bore you guys showing you how I did the rest of the drawing since that's not what this video is about, but here's the finished piece if you're curious. I definitely still have a lot to learn about drawing people, but I think that it turned out alright. I'm always forgetting to put watermarks on Instagram photos, so I decided to make a keychain that I can attach to my sketchbook to remind myself to include them. For this project, you'll need shrink plastic, something to write with, a hole punch, and a keychain. You don't have to make it into a keychain, I just thought it was a cool idea since I had the supplies already. Just write your social media handles on the plastic, cut it out, and bake it according to the package instructions. When punching the hole in the plastic, I punched multiple holes next to each other to make it a little bit bigger, since the size of the hole will shrink when you bake it. So here's how my watermark turned out. You can make this as fancy or as simple as you want. I think this is a great idea if you take a lot of photos of your art to post online. If you have a spiral-bound sketchbook, you can attach this to the binding, but if you have a book-type sketchbook, you can make one and keep it in a pocket, which I showed how to make in my sketchbook makeover video. For the next hack, you'll need a container, preferably one that's a little bit wider at the top. I used an old Chinese food container. You'll also need a hot glue gun. All you have to do is put dots and lines of the glue at the bottom of the container, and now you have the easiest way to clean your paintbrushes. This was inspired by a product called paint pucks, which are small, bumpy silicone pieces that you put at the bottom of a cup of water to help you clean your paintbrushes. They really reminded me of those DIY makeup brush cleaners that people were making a while ago, so I decided to make my own version. The only downside to this project is that you'll have to find a container that's big enough to fit a hot glue gun, but once you do, this is a super easy project. I wasn't sure if I'd notice much of a difference cleaning my paintbrushes, but this worked even better than I expected. It was much faster and easier to get all of the paint off of the brush, and it might just be that this is a bigger container, but I found myself having to change the paint water less frequently too. I used the lid from my container as a paint palette. This is a great reusable alternative to using paper plates like I normally do. You can wash the paint off in the sink right after you're done painting, or if you let it dry, you can peel the paint off like I did here. The next hack is to swatch materials over a black line to test their opacity. This works really well with acrylic paint. The paint that I'm swatching is the set of 60 acrylic paints from Arteza. The people at Arteza were nice enough to send me these paints and their 9x12 mixed media pad to test out, but they're not paying me to make this video at all. They did give me a coupon code that you guys can use. If you enter Megan Weller 1 when you check out, you'll get 10% off of your purchase. I'm not going to do a dedicated review video on these since I don't really know much about acrylic paint, but they're definitely a step up from the Craftsmart and Apple Barrel paints that I typically use. With this set, you get 60 22 milliliter tubes of paint for $40 or $36 when you use my coupon code. With the coupon, it comes out to 60 cents per paint tube, which I think is a pretty good deal. I really appreciated that these paints didn't have a little piece of foil to seal them. It made swatching them much easier. They have a light fast rating of about 3 on the ASTM scale, which means that the pigment will last about 15 to 50 years. This is fine for my purposes since I mainly work in sketchbooks and I don't sell my work, but it's something to keep in mind for professionals. So here's a look at the dried swatches. This paint dries pretty fast, which can be a good or a bad thing depending on what you're looking for. Overall, I really like this set, and I can't wait to play around with it more. The next hack is something that I really wish I would have known sooner, and that is to use a spray bottle filled with water to activate watercolors. This will help keep your watercolors looking nicer for longer, and it'll help them not look like this. The next idea is to make a swatch sheet to fit inside of the container that your art supplies came in. Arteza also sent me this set of 36 half-pan watercolors, and while it does come with a printed swatch sheet, it's always a good idea to make your own swatches. I traced the container onto a piece of watercolor paper and swatched out all of the colors. The watercolor set comes with a water brush, but it's not as nice as the other water brushes that I have from Arteza. I honestly suck at watercolor, but it's something that I really want to get better at, so I'm excited to have some more colors to work with. Once I had all of my swatches, I wrote down the color names and I cut the piece out. I covered it with clear packing tape to laminate it, and it fit snugly inside the lid. I also decided to laminate the included swatch sheet, but that was kind of a mistake because the tape didn't go on smoothly at all. It was not really a good look. The reason that I laminated everything was so that the swatches wouldn't get messed up if they got wet, but you wouldn't necessarily need to do this for something like colored pencils or pens. If your swatch sheet doesn't fit snugly, you can get some Velcro and hot glue one side to the back of the swatches and the other side to the container so that you can stick it on and it won't get lost. The last hack that I actually use is that you can get free magazines to use in collages. I learned about this years ago, and I can't remember the last time that I actually paid for a magazine. If you just Google free magazines, something is bound to come up, but lately I've been using an app called Recycle Bank, which lets you earn points to get free magazines. It's actually really easy to earn the points. It's not a scam at all. They don't ask for any information other than a shipping address, and I would definitely recommend this if you like making magazine collages. And just so you guys know, I'm not sponsored by them at all. They don't know that I'm talking about this. I just think that it's really cool, and I thought that some of you guys might like it. If you've made it this far in the video, let me know any art hacks that you actually use in the comments. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you'd like to see a part 2, because I have a lot more ideas. I might even do one of these using your suggestions. So here are today's shoutouts. If you want a shout out in my next video, go on to my notebook ideas video that I just posted and let me know how you fill your notebooks. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and as always, make sure to subscribe for more videos just like this one, and make sure to follow me on Instagram. It is @WellerMegs, And yeah, I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!